After 12 years apart, a boy's incredible return with his nanny reveals a heartwarming, life-changing reunion. Max stood in the middle of the bustling Kansas City festival, his heart pounding like a drum. Twinkling lights adorned the trees, and laughter erupted all around him, but a shadow loomed over his spirit. The vibrant colors and sweet smells of fried food did little to lift the weight pressing down on his chest. It was almost too much to bear, the thought that Mrs. Thompson was back. After all these years, the woman who had filled his life with warmth was stepping back into it. Could it be true? The air changed, electric with possibility. He could see her in his mind, the way her eyes sparkled as they carved pumpkins together, the stories she told about the world outside his small block, and the gentle rhythm of her laughter that always made him feel safe. But that was years ago. 8 long years. Since his mother passed, and all the joy, laughter, and hope left with her, Max shuffled through the crowd, memories wrapping around him like a warm blanket. When Mrs. Thompson had left, it felt like losing a second mother. His days became marked by loneliness, with only the memories sprinkled with happiness. But now, she was here. Yet, a storm hung over his family, with eviction letters finding a home in their mailbox, like vultures circling overhead. As Max searched the sea of familiar faces, whispers floated through the air. "Did you hear she's back? But she is doing better now." The community, once a tight-knit family, had begun to unravel with Indian judgment. And while his heart ignited with another chance to reconnect with Mrs. Thompson, doubt weighed on him. Would the whispers change how she saw him? When he finally found her, standing under a canopy draped in orange and purple streamers, their eyes locked, and for a moment, time stood still. His heart raced, his cheeks flushed. There she was, just as he remembered, kind-hearted and warm, but also a woman transformed by her years away. They both smiled, the corners of their mouths twitching like the flickering lights above them, igniting the entire world. "Max, my dear boy," she exclaimed, enveloping him in a hug. He melted into her embrace, allowing the warmth to wash over him. It felt like home. Yet, he could feel the rocks in his heart. "Things at home, they're not so great," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. As the chatter around them intensified, a sudden hush fell over the crowd when he introduced her to his friends. Eyes widened, the air crackled with tension. "Isn't she that Nanny?" whispered one classmate. "How did she end up back here?" another chimed in. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Don't worry about them, Max. I'm here now," Mrs. Thompson reassured, placing her hand on his shoulder. Just then, she bravely offered to help, to support his family through the mess that their life had become. "We can get through anything if we stick together," she said, hope shining in her eyes. Max felt a surge of pride battling with fear. Could her kindness really be enough to make things better? As the festival lights sparkled, promises of a remade future flickered to life, electrifying the air. But with every twinkling star shining above, he couldn't shake the feeling that the world was about to change, and he had to decide which path to take. Would he embrace the support she offered and risk judgment, or retreat into the shadows of uncertainty? Max stood there, his heart in turmoil. The laughter around him felt distant, a world away from the inner conflict surging within. How could he allow Mrs. Thompson back into his life when the memories of his mother still stung? But there she was, a beacon of hope amid the chaos, a reminder of a happier time. "I mean it, Max," she said, her voice steady, breaking through his thoughts. You don't have to face this alone. Your family matters to me. He looked into her eyes, searching for any trace of the girl who left all those years ago. What he found instead was a woman whose strength seemed to rise from the ashes of her past, ready to wrap him in the love he missed. Did he dare believe in that promise of help? Things haven't been the same without you, he admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. But my family, they're struggling. I can't drag you into this mess. Mrs. Thompson shook her head, her determination unyielding. You're not dragging me anywhere, Max. I want to be here. I want to help. It's different now. I'm different. And so are you. Max's mind raced with a mixture of hope and doubt. Could he allow her back into his life after everything? Did he want to risk everything that came with the vulnerability of reconnection? The festival buzzed around him, joyful chaos at odds with the anxious thrum in his heart. Max? Earth to Max? Jason, his best friend, waved a hand in front of his face, breaking the spell. Dude, you okay? You look lost. With a sigh, Max realized he was trapped not only in his own worries, but under the scrutinizing gaze of his peers. The words of his classmates echoed in his mind. "Isn't you that Nanny?" He clenched his fists, frustration bubbling up. Ignoring them felt impossible. They saw him as the boy left behind, a symbol of failure. Would they ever understand what Mrs. Thompson meant to him? Before he could respond to Jason, a small voice called out from the crowd. Max, is she back for good? It was Lila, a girl he had liked in elementary school. Her hopeful expression deepened the embarrassment that gnawed at him. He stammered, the rawness of his emotions bubbling just below the surface. Yeah, she is. But things aren't easy. The crowd shifted, their whispers growing a little louder. Max could feel the weight of judgment hanging in the air. The mix of longing and despair felt like a chokehold. Yet when he turned to Mrs. Thompson, she stood firm, unyielding in her resolve and radiating warmth. I know it looks complicated, she said softly, but remember, real growth comes from facing things head-on. You're stronger than you think, Max. Her words wrapped around him like a comforting embrace, igniting a spark within that he didn't know still existed. Maybe, just maybe, he could lean on her. With a deep breath, he decided then and there. This time, let us face it together, he stated, his voice gaining strength. He felt Mrs. Thompson's smile widen and, for the first time in years, a flicker of hope ignited in his heart. As the festival lights twinkled above, illuminating their little corner of the tempest, he realized the road ahead would be hard, but together, they might just find a way through it all. But just when he thought he had prepared himself for what lay ahead, a chilling sound pierced the night, a siren wailing in the distance. Everything fell still as they turned toward the sound, a sense of foreboding washing over him. For the first time, Max feared that this festival may hold more surprises than he bargained for. What else could go wrong? Max's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing the dread that washed over him like a sudden storm. The siren's wail seemed to slice through the laughter and music of the festival, leaving a sharp silence in its wake. He glanced at Mrs. Thompson, and for a brief moment, it was as if the world had narrowed to just the two of them, anchored in the chaos outside. Stay here, he whispered, though his voice trembled with uncertainty. No way, she replied firmly, a glimmer of defiance in her eyes. If something's wrong, you know we face it together. The crowd shifted, eyes darting toward the source of the noise, a buzz of confusion rippling through the festival goers. Max felt the collective anxiety settling in the air. It was as if the atmosphere had thickened, brimming with unspoken questions. As they moved toward the edge of the crowd, he noticed Jason's uneasy expression. What is happening? His friend asked, worry etching lines on his forehead. Before Max could answer, a group of uniformed officers rushed past them, their urgency palpable. The laughter that had once danced through the air faded into whispers. "Something happened near the park," Jason said, nudging forward to peer around the onlookers. "I think someone got hurt." For a moment, the noise of the festival faded entirely, replaced by the knot of fear tightening in Max's stomach. His family. What if something involved them? Memories of sleepless nights, worrying about their safety, flooded back. "Let us find out," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice a calming presence next to him. "We can't just stand here. We need to know." Max nodded, but the fear still clung to him like a heavy fog. They pressed through the crowd, each step filled with uncertainty and a gnawing worry for what might lay ahead. The vibrant colors of the festival lights felt dimmer now. The laughter that had once been infectious turned into hushed tones of concern. They emerged into a small clearing where the crowd had gathered, eyes fixed on a group of paramedics working frantically. The air felt thick with tension, and Max instinctively gripped Mrs. Thompson's hand, anchoring himself amidst the chaos. "Is that?" he whispered, scanning the scene. His pulse quickened, heart leaping to his throat, as he spotted a familiar figure, a woman on the ground, surrounded by medical staff. Max's breath hitched. "It's his mom," Jason whispered, eyes widening in disbelief. "What happened?" Panic surged through Max's mom. He stepped forward, but Mrs. Thompson pulled him back with a firm grip. "Wait, Max," she urged, her voice low and steady. "Let them do their job." But Max couldn't hold back anymore. He needed to know. "What is wrong?" He shouted toward the paramedics, anxiety sharpening his voice. One of them turned, a serious look etched on his face. "We're handling it. Please step back." Max's world began to tilt, the panic rising inside him like a tidal wave. He felt Mrs. Thompson's hand tighten around his, grounding him, though fear crept through his veins. What if she is hurt?" Max's voice trembled, the underlying emotion spilling over. "We can't jump to conclusions," Mrs. Thompson said softly. "Stay focused." Tears stung his eyes, and in that razor-thin moment, he realized how much he had taken for granted. The warmth of family, the laughter that could turn into silence so abruptly. Just when he thought he had found hope, a darkness loomed over him. As the sirens grew quieter, Max felt the weight of his mother's love filling the space around him. But the reality of the situation felt like a shroud, threatening to suffocate. He glanced toward Mrs. Thompson, who held his gaze with unwavering strength. "Whatever happens, remember you're not alone," she murmured. Max nodded, clinging to her words as he steeled himself for the uncertainty ahead. Whatever lay on the other side of this moment would test not only their bond, but the very fabric of resilience. Just then, he caught the eye of one of the paramedics, a flicker of recognition in his gaze. "Max," he called out, voice raised above the murmurs. "You need to come here." His heart dropped as Mrs. Thompson and Jason exchanged worried glances. What could they have found out? The dread constricted around his chest, squeezing tight, leaving him breathless. As he approached, the weight of impending reality loomed larger than ever. What news awaited him on this fateful night? Max's feet felt heavy as he approached the paramedic, each step pulling him deeper into a well of anxiety. The man stood there, his expression grave but not unfriendly. There was a quiet urgency to his demeanor that sent a shiver down Max's spine. "Max," the paramedic repeated, glancing quickly toward the scene where a blanket covered the still figure of his mother. "We need you to come with us." "It's important." Max's stomach dropped. "What does that mean? Is she okay?" His voice cracked, desperation creeping in. He felt Mrs. Thompson's hand squeeze as tightly. To lose his mom, especially after all they'd been through, was something he couldn't fathom. "Let us step over here," the paramedic said, motioning with his head to a slightly quieter corner. The air was thick with the lingering fear of the crowd, but in this moment, it felt as though everything around him faded to a soft hum. Your mom was involved in an incident, but we're working to help her. She is stable right now, the paramedic assured, his tone gently encouraging. Stable? Max echoed, feeling the slightest flicker of hope amidst the crushing weight of fear. What happened? Is she awake? The paramedic looked him in the eye, his gaze steady. She collapsed due to a medical issue. It's hard to explain fully in the noise, but we're doing everything we can. We'll transport her to the hospital soon. A million thoughts raced through Max's mind. Was it something serious? Would he get to see her? The festival lights flickered dimly in the background, far removed from the panic racing through him. Can I see her? Soon, once we get her stabilized in the ambulance. You need to wait here just a moment longer, the paramedic replied. His patience was a balm against the rising tide of chaos inside Max. Mrs. Thompson moved closer, her supportive presence a buoy in the turbulent sea of his emotions. Max, it's okay to feel scared, but we have to trust them, she said softly. He nodded, squeezing her hand back, searching for strength within her calm. Max turned back towards the group of paramedics as they worked. Their movements, swift yet deliberate, hinted at a level of skill he would have admired under happier circumstances. Sweat dripped down his brow, his heart racing in a rhythm that felt wildly out of sync with the world around him. Isn't there's something else we can do? Jason's voice cracked, full of anxious energy. Maybe we can. No, Jason, Mrs. Thompson interrupted gently, her tone firm yet understanding. Right now, the best thing we can do is let the professionals do their job. Being here together is what matters. Max appreciated her words, yet desperation gripped him tighter. He tried to focus on the rhythm of his breath, reminding himself that they were in this together. Just then, he caught sight of a familiar hair clip glinting under the festival lights. It was his mother's. She is going to be okay, he whispered to himself, the need for assurance battling with the gnawing worry. Memories flooded his mind, the way her laughter used to fill their home, her warm hugs that chased away all the darkness. As if sensing his thoughts, Mrs. Thompson said, "Think of the good times, Max. Hold on to those." But how could he hold on to those times when the present felt so heavy with uncertainty? The paramedic returned, his face now softened. Max, your mom is stable for the moment, but the doctors at the hospital will take over from here. We'll go as soon as they're ready. Can I ride with her? Instant anxiety creased Max's brow again. Yes, of course, the paramedic answered. You'll be able to stay by her side. Relief flared momentarily, mixing with the tension still coiling around him. This was a lifeline. He needed to be there when she woke up, to tell her everything would be all right. He turned to Mrs. Thompson and Jason. I think I can let us just all stick together for now, Jason said, his own fear evident. They stood together in shared silence, the sirens fading now, but leaving an echo in their hearts. Max was grateful for their presence, for the support that tethered him to hope. But as they moved toward the ambulance, his mind lingered on the road ahead. What would he say to her? What if things didn't go as planned? As the paramedics prepared to load her onto the stretcher, he eagerly looked for her familiar face beneath the blanket, heart pounding like a drum. Just then, a sudden noise erupted from the crowd, a loud shout, followed by panic unfolding once more. What is happening now? Jason exclaimed, eyes wide. Max's dread surged again, heavy in his heart. He felt the weight of that impending reality collide with the tenuous thread of hope he was clinging to. So many questions loomed as they approached the ambulance. How much more could change in one night? Would they find answers after all? Max's heart raced as the shout echoed through the fairgrounds, an abrupt interruption to the fragile thread of hope he had been clinging to. It was as if the universe conspired to stretch the fabric of his life taut, pulling at seams that threatened to unravel entirely. What is happening? He felt his throat constrict as a knot of anxiety tightened within him. The crowd, which had moments ago been a colorful sea of joy and laughter, now turned into a churning mass of confusion, with people jostling and shouting. "Stay close," Mrs. Thompson commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos with the strength of a lifeline. Max felt her grip tighten on his arm as they shuffled toward the ambulance, trying to shield him from the rising tide of distress. The paramedics kept their focus, oblivious to the mounting panic around them, but the tension in the air was palpable. Jason's wide eyes darted back and forth, picking up on every little movement. "They're not gonna close the ambulance door, are they?" he blurted out, and his voice quaked with uncertainty. "No, I'm sure they'll take care of her first," Max said, trying to project calmness even as his heart raced faster. He could barely hear his own voice above the din of the crowd. The paramedic stepped closer, his brow furrowed, as he took in both the scene and Max's anguished face. "I promise you, your mom is getting the best care. Just keep focusing on that, all right?" "Why, yeah." Max nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. The uncertainty felt like a thick fog smothering any glimmer of hope. Then, as if time decided to halt for just a moment, a woman burst through the crowd, eyes wide, frantically searching for someone. "Max!" she screamed, her voice drenched in raw desperation. Recognition hit like a wall. It was his aunt, Emily. Surprised and relieved, his heart jumped, but that joy was quickly dimmed by her frantic expression. "What is going on? Is your mother okay?" "I don't know," Max stammered, feeling the weight of connection and concern press deeply. "She collapsed. They're taking her to the hospital, but she is stable." Emily's face paled further as she took in the situation. It was a tableau of worry etched into each face around them. Mrs. Thompson placed her other hand on Max's shoulder, grounding him, squeezing gently. "Let us get you to the ambulance first," she suggested, her eyes reflecting confidence that felt somewhat contagious. "You need to be with her." They shuffled forward, inching toward the chaos as the crowd buzzed around them, each voice weaving a tapestry of anxiety. Just when Max thought it couldn't get worse, another loud cry rippled through the crowd, producing a wave of panic that swept people aside like leaves in the wind. Then came a series of swift motions, the paramedics moving faster now, urgency etched into every line of their faces. The blanket over his mom shifted slightly as they prepared to place her in the ambulance. "Mom!" Max shouted, his voice breaking through the roar of commotion around him. He felt his pulse quicken, fear crescendoing. "Can you hear me? Please just wake up." The paramedic looked at him, his face suddenly serious. "Max, you need to let us do our jobs, okay? We'll take care of her." But those words felt like a wave crashing against a shore of helplessness. Just when they all thought that order was about to be restored, another shout arose, but this time it was accompanied by sirens, the kind that meant police, or worse. Max's eyes darted around, panic distinct as fear clawed at his insides. "Is this really happening?" he whispered to himself, almost in disbelief. With everything spiraling, the one constant feeling he held was a desperate need to connect with his mom again. Yet, as they finally arrived at the ambulance door, the gravity of reality loomed over him like a dark cloud. He took a deep breath, bracing himself for whatever revelation lay ahead. How would he face her in the hospital? How could they find a way through this storm together? As the paramedics moved with steady efficiency, signaling it was time to lift her onto the gurney, the crowd recoiled slightly, sensing a change. Max clenched his fists and squeezed Mrs. Thompson's hand, staring at the closing doors of the ambulance. What lay behind those doors? Would he find the courage to face whatever awaited them on the other side? The ambulance doors slammed shut, the sound reverberating like a finality Max couldn't comprehend. His heart sunk deeper as the vehicle's lights flashed, slicing through the chaos with a merciless urgency. He felt the ground shift beneath him, reality blurring as he clung to the fleeting hope that everything would be okay. "Max, we should go," Emily urged, her hand trembling as it rested on his back. "Go where?" he asked, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. "I can't just stand here." Mrs. Thompson stepped closer, her presence shielding them both from the ebbing tide of onlookers. "It's important to stay calm, Max. Let us follow the ambulance to the hospital." As they made their way through the crowd, each step felt heavy, like dragging a weight. Max could barely focus on the people around him, murmurs drifting by like leaves catching a breeze. He strained to hear snippets of conversations, fragments of worry. Was it just his mom, or something worse happening around him? Suddenly, he felt nausea rising. What if she doesn't make it? The thought spiraled in his head, a haunting shadow. "Max," Emily said, her voice relaxed but firm, "let us not think like that. Remember when we used to watch those superhero movies? They always find a way, right?" He wanted to argue. Reality wasn't a movie. Life wasn't fair. But somewhere beneath the fear, a tiny flicker of connection sparked. "Yeah, but movies always have a happy ending." Her eyes softened. "Life can too, you know. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to see it." Max forced a nod, the warmth of her words barely comforting his churning stomach. The siren's wail faded into the distance as they reached the hospital parking lot. People rushed around, healthcare workers moving with a quiet purpose. Max's stomach twisted tighter. What if they can't help her? "Let us just get inside first," Mrs. Thompson said, steering him toward the entrance. It felt like walking into a different world, one where fear and hope collided spectacularly. While they stood at the reception desk, Max felt suddenly small. He heard laughter and chatter from other families, stark in contrast to the storm inside him. They signed in, each tick of the nurse's pen echoing in his ears. "Do you have any information on Angela Blake?" Emily piped up, her voice steady despite the worry etched across her features. "Please wait," the receptionist replied before turning to a back room. The words felt like knives. What did that mean? As they waited, Max's mind raced, cycling through memories. Their weekends spent camping, laughter fading into the sounds of rustling leaves. That life felt far away, a chapter he had noted in a dream. He gritted his teeth. What if this time they were unable to laugh again? Finally, the receptionist returned. "Please have a seat. The doctor will talk to you as soon as he can." The three of them found chairs in the waiting area, the sterile smell of antiseptic stinging Max's nose. Time passed like molasses, thick and viscous. Each tick of the clock stretched the tension to its breaking point. "Max," Emily whispered, leaning forward, "look, I know this is hard, but whatever happens, we'll get through it together." He turned to meet her eyes, feeling the weight of uncertainty choking him. "But what if I lose her?" Just then, a doctor emerged, his expression unrecognizable. Max's breath hitched in his throat. "What is it?" he blurted out, the words cascading from him in a rush. The world around them fell silent as he awaited the response. The doctor approached with a clipboard, the weight of unspoken words filling the air between them, as if he held all the answers to Max's questions. "Max, can you come with me? We need to talk about your mother." His heart raced again. What awaited him in that moment? Would he have the strength to navigate whatever revelation awaited on the other side of those hospital walls? With a forced breath, Max pushed himself up from the chair. Every step toward the doctor felt like wading through thick fog, each heartbeat pulsing louder in his ears. He glanced back at Emily and Mrs. Thompson, their faces painted with concern and encouragement. He needed to be strong for them, for his mom. The doctor led him down sterile hallways, the smell of antiseptic enveloping them like an unwelcome shroud. Max's mind churned with questions. Was she awake? In pain? What did the doctor know? They arrived at a small conference room. The doctor gestured for Max to sit. His heart quickened with anxiety. The walls were bare and cold, contrasting sharply with the warmth of the memories he clung to of his mom's smile, her laughter echoing in their home. "Max," the doctor began, his voice steady yet sympathetic, "I'm Dr. Reynolds. I'm here to talk to you about your mother's condition." The pen scratched against the clipboard, and the sound felt heavy between them. Max swallowed hard, trying to silence the panic that was rising once again. "Is she okay?" Dr. Reynolds hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words, and that silence twisted in Max's gut. "She is stable for now. We did everything we could during the surgery," but I need to explain that the words faded into a low echo, his throat dry as chalk. "But what?" he urged, his voice breaking. "Your mom sustained significant injuries. She is in recovery, but there are complications. We had to address complications." Just a word, but it slammed into him like a freight train. Max felt the walls close in, an oppressive weight that made it hard to breathe. "I need to see her," he said, a determination rising within him. The doctor nodded slowly. "I completely understand, but we cannot guarantee she will be responsive. It's important to prepare yourself for this." It was the "prepare yourself" that left a bitter taste in his mouth. How could he prepare for something he didn't want to accept? With a nod, Max pushed away the swirling doubts and fear. He would be there for her. He had to be. "Follow me," Dr. Reynolds said, leading him down another long corridor. Each step echoed in his mind, memories swirling of afternoons they spent together. Cooking, planting flowers in the garden, movie nights. Each memory felt like a lifeline. When they reached her room, the doctor opened the door. The sterile atmosphere shifted as Max stepped inside, and there she was, lying in a hospital bed, with machines softly beeping around her like a heartbeat. Her face was pale, drawn, with a few bruises peeking through. But it was still her. There was something so peaceful about her, like she was just resting. Max felt his throat tighten, tears stinging his eyes. He approached her slowly, not wanting to disrupt the fragile moment. "Mom," he whispered. He held her hand, feeling the familiar warmth, even amidst the coldness of the room. 5 minutes turned into an hour, and he barely moved. He just stared at her, hoping for the smallest sign of life. The sounds of the machines became a soothing melody, each beep anchoring him in this moment. It was both a torment and a comfort. He tried to think of what he wanted to tell her, the things he wished he could say. "You're my hero, you know that? You've always been my hero." Max's breath caught as a tear slipped down his cheek, landing softly on her hand. Would she hear him? Would she wake up? Suddenly, he noticed a stirring, and his heart leapt. Her eyelids fluttered, just a fraction, but it was everything. "Mom?" he said, his voice tinged with urgency. And then, very slowly, her eyes began to open. The world around them faded away as he focused on the point where hope and heartache met, hanging in the balance. The moment felt surreal, charged with anticipation. Would she know him? Would she speak? Max, a whisper barely escaped her lips, fragile yet fierce. His heart soared, hope exploding within him. "Yes, Mom. I'm here." But a sudden thought gripped him like a vice. Was she truly back, or just a flicker before slipping away again? Before he could say anything more, the nurse stepped in. "Max, we need to check on her vitals." He stepped away, but as the nurse turned her back, he caught a glimpse of uncertainty on the doctor's face. What did that mean? As the medical team buzzed around him, confusion settled in. Would she stay, or would he be left standing in the echo of another loss? The room buzzed with activity, but all he could think was how desperately he needed to hold on to this moment. And then he heard her voice again, softer and hesitant. "Max, are you really here?" The question hung heavy in the air, and he realized he had to confront this chaos that wrapped around them, with everything at stake. "Yes, Mom, I'm here." But would they get through this together? Or was this just the beginning of a much deeper struggle? As the nurse took her position near the monitors, adjusting dials and checking readings, Max leaned closer to his mother. Her eyes fluttered, struggling to focus on him. She seemed lost, as if surfacing from a long, deep sleep. Did you come back for me?" Her voice was soft, like a fragile whisper just above the hum of machines. "Always," he replied, his heart tightening at the sorrow in her gaze. "I've always been here, Mom. It just took me too long to find my way back. But I'm not going anywhere again." Dr. Reynolds stepped back, letting the moment unfold but keeping a watchful eye. Max could see a flicker of hope in the doctor's expression. Perhaps he was also rooting for the impossible. As Max held her hand, he felt a spark of warmth radiate between them. Memories flooded back, laughter echoing through their little kitchen, the smell of chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven, the way she'd wrap him in her arms when he was scared. Max, her voice trembled slightly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't." He squeezed her hand tighter, desperate for her to know she had nothing to be sorry for. "Don't. Just focus on getting better. That is all that matters right now." The room surged with an emotional tide. Time felt suspended, caught somewhere between their joyous reunions and the looming fears. Would they have the chance to rediscover each other? To share old stories and create new ones? The thought danced around Max's mind, a sweet promise he clung to. Can you tell me everything?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "How old are you now? What has happened while We have a lot to catch up on," he interrupted, a gentle smile breaking through the tears. "We'll talk about everything, I promise. But first, just focus on resting." A creak from the doorway broke the cocoon of their reunion. Emily stepped in with Mrs. Thompson, holding something that glinted under the hospital lights. "Max," Emily said, her voice wavering with emotions of her own, "we brought her favorite blanket." She walked forward, laying it carefully over his mother's legs. It was the blanket knitted in hues of blue and green, the one she always adored during chilly nights watching movies together. His mom's expression shifted, joy merging with disbelief. "You remember it?" "Of course." Max nodded, stepping back to let Emily have a moment with her. It was clear the connection they all shared was deepened by the love and the bond they had built over the years. Emily knelt down, whispering words of encouragement and comfort. As he watched them together, Max felt a knot in his chest loosening just a little. It wasn't just about recovering his mother anymore. It was about reclaiming their family and healing bonds that had frayed in uncertainty and time apart. But just as hope began to bloom, a shadow loomed in the corner of his mind. What if this fragile moment was just a flicker before darkness returned? A single beat too soon, the machines went quiet for just a second, and he could feel the tension thicken around them. "Mom, are you feeling okay?" he asked, instinctively leaning closer, eyes darting between her and the nurse. "Max?" Her expression changed, a flicker of confusion sweeping over her face. I think there is something I need to tell you." The weight of that sentence hung heavy between them, heavy with implications. Max's breath caught in his throat as he leaned forward, the comforting rhythm of hope now intertwined with uncertainty. "What is it?" he asked, bracing himself for news that could shatter the fragile peace they had built in the minute. But just then, the bright lights in the room began to flicker, a surge of something more than just physical energy crackling in the air. Something was about to change again. The sound of monitors began to warp, alarming beeps cutting through the atmosphere of camaraderie they had just forged. "Mom?" he breathed, his heart pounding. The answer he craved hung in the air, waiting to be unveiled. What game was fate playing this time? Would he lose her again, just when they were finally finding their way back to each other? As the chaos unfolded around them, Max's grip tightened on his mother's hand. He wouldn't let go. Not now, not ever. And in that moment, he realized the hardest struggles were often the ones worth fighting for. Would this be their moment of healing or a step into deeper uncertainty? The moment seemed to stretch into infinity, wrapped in a blend of hope and dread. Max felt the warmth of his mother's hand even as fear crept into his mind. He glanced towards the monitors, where the vibrant green lines began to waver, rattling with an uncomfortable rhythm. The nurse rushed back, her face a mask of calm professionalism, but Max detected the tinge of urgency in her movements. "Stay with us, Mrs. Johnson. We need you to breathe," the nurse instructed, her voice steady. Max watched as his mother's expression shifted, panic washing over her face. "What is happening?" she whispered, the strength fading from her voice. "Mom, look at me," Max urged, squeezing her hand tighter. "Breathe in and out, just like we practiced." With every breath, he tried to weave their connection tighter, anchoring them both in that moment. Emily stood by, her eyes wide, heart racing alongside Max's. He could feel the energy in the room, the hope, the fear, the uncertainty all converging in a single point, and he fought to hold on to it. Dr. Reynolds returned, glancing at the monitors. "We need to stabilize her. A few adjustments, just hold on, Mrs. Johnson." He moved swiftly, calling for additional assistance, the gentle chaos intensifying around them. Max's mother's breath hitched, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to say I'm here, Mom," he implored, leaning closer, wishing to absorb her words through his very soul. "I've kept secrets, but you need to know they weren't meant to hurt you." She winced, as if every word was a physical effort. "Please just hold on. We'll have time for this later," he said, not truly believing it. Every fiber of his being screamed that he couldn't lose her now, not when they were finally reconnecting. In the frenzy, Max noticed the flicker in her eyes. It was fleeting, a recognition of something he couldn't grasp yet, but it stirred an urgency inside him. He felt the weight of unspoken words hovering like a cloud above them, heavy and oppressive. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered again, plunging the room into brief darkness before fluorescent lights buzzed back to life. Max's heart rattled in his chest. The world outside went dim for a moment. Was it a sign? He wanted to scream, to cry, to tear through the shadows that loomed between them. "Max," his mother gasped, her voice stronger, more insistent, "I've been holding on to something. You need," but before she could finish, the monitors erupted into chaotic beeping, drowning out her words. The nurse was at her side, quick and focused, commands spilling from her mouth as she worked to stabilize the situation. "Do not leave," Max's mother managed to say, locking eyes with him, her gaze filled with an indescribable blend of love and fear. "I want tea. I promise," he vowed, voice trembling with raw emotion. As the medical staff worked feverishly around them, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. Each moment felt heavier, like an anchor pulling him under. Max was trapped between the present and the shadows of the past, desperate for answers but paralyzed with fear that these answers could tear them apart again. Then, just as he felt his resolve starting to waver, the chaos in the room began to subside. Fading beeps normalized back to the soft hum of monitors. "Hold her steady," Dr. Reynolds instructed, his voice commanding but reassuring. "We've got this, you're safe, Mrs. Johnson." But Max felt anything but safe. The weight of the secrets loomed larger than ever, challenges ahead that felt insurmountable. What if the truth shattered them before they could become whole again? "Max?" His mother's voice was barely a wisp now, and though she fought to maintain focus, fatigue was settling over her. He leaned close, his forehead nearly resting against hers. The connection was everything, fragile yet fierce. What would she share with him when the storm cleared? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. It shattered the fragile resolve, a jolt of new fear spiking through the room. "What now?" Max whispered, his heart sinking. And that question hung heavy in the air, poised to lay bare even more truths or fears. What lay behind that door? Would it threaten the hope they had just begun to reclaim? Max braced himself, because he was fighting not just for her recovery, but for the stories untold, waiting in the shadows to break free. Max's heart pounded as the door swung open, revealing a familiar face. His older brother, Alex, rushed in, breathless and wild-eyed. "Max, I saw the ambulance. I came as fast as I could." Max stood frozen for a split second, his mind racing with emotions, joy crashing into the storm of worry still swirling inside him. "Alex," he shouted, the relief washing over him like warm sunlight breaking through a storm. Alex's gaze scanned the room, landing on their mother. A mix of fear and love flooded his expression. "What is going on?" "She is stable," but Max's voice faltered, searching for words that felt too heavy to utter. The reality hung like a veil of mist. "I'll explain later," Emily interjected gently, stepping forward to embrace Alex, grounding him as the gravity of the situation sank in. The three of them came together in that tiny room, a makeshift shield against the world outside. With a deep breath, Max looked back at his mother. The flickering lights overhead danced like tiny stars above her in that dull hospital room. She remained pale, but the warmth of her hand squeezed back against his as he held on tightly. "You're not alone, Mom," he murmured, inching closer as if the proximity alone could shield them all from what lay ahead. "I know," she whispered weakly, a faint smile lining her lips. In that moment, the machines beside the bed beeped steadily, like little soldiers standing guard, constant and resolute. Max couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point, a moment that could define their journey ahead. "Max," his mother said, her voice rough yet steady, "I want to tell you everything." But the fatigue in her eyes reminded him of the fragility of life. He wasn't ready to lose her again, not now that he felt her strength returning. "We will," he promised, his voice gaining conviction. "We'll have all the time in the world, I swear." At that moment, the door swung open once more, and Dr. Reynolds entered, clipboard in hand but softer now. "How is the family?" he asked, scanning the room filled with a mix of hope and fear. "We're holding on," Max affirmed, glancing back at Alex and Emily, who nodded in agreement. "Just trying to be here for her." "Good," Dr. Reynolds replied, frowning at the monitors before returning his steady gaze to Max. "The next few hours will be crucial. If we can keep her stable overnight, we can reassess in the morning." The weight of his words sank in, a fragile hope blossoming in Max's chest. "What about?" "Focus on your mother for now," Dr. Reynolds interrupted gently. "We'll take good care of her. You just focus on being the wonderful son she knows you are." Max nodded, taking the moment to breathe, his heart easing just a bit. He turned back to his mother, who seemed to draw strength from their presence. "Max," she murmured again, reassuring him without even trying. "You've grown strong," she said, her eyes glimmering just like festival lights. "And not just in body." A warm surge swept through him, and he felt a smile creep across his face. "Every adventure we had, every story you shared, I still carry them with me," he said, his chest swelling with affection. Their connection pulsed stronger, anchored by unspoken promises. They would continue to climb together, through all the storms still ahead. Suddenly, the emergency alarm chimed in the hall, but this time it didn't shatter their moment. Instead, it ignited a fierce determination within Max. They would face every challenge side by side, ready to unravel the secrets that tightly wound around their hearts. With a squeeze of his mother's hand, he leaned in closer. "I won't let go this time," he vowed. "We're going to be all right, I promise." Hope radiated in the room, creating a safe haven that whispered promises of healing, a reunification of their fragmented family, and the opportunity to shape a new chapter filled with warmth and laughter. Together, they would rewrite their story, each mark of pain replaced by a reminder of love. As they sat together, the afternoon sun filtering through the window, bathing them in its glow, Max allowed himself to imagine what lay ahead. It would be hard, yes, and healing didn't always feel easy, but at least they were a family, together rising against the odds, ready to embrace every moment. Max felt an unfamiliar courage surging within him, igniting the way forward. He turned to Mrs. Thompson, who had stood quietly encouraging, ready to support this new journey. "You will be with us, right?" "Always," she replied, her voice unwavering, reflections of compassion lighting her eyes. In that hospital room, surrounded by love and resilience, they carved out hope from the chaos of the world outside, weaving their lives anew. Each moment would be a thread, building a tapestry of survival, growth, and most importantly, family. With renewed strength, Max smiled through his tears, feeling their hearts connect like the lights of the festival, each glimmer a promise of brighter days ahead. And with those thoughts flourishing, he closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of love envelop him like a protective embrace. It was time to step into the dawn of this new chapter, one they would face together, no matter what lay ahead. This is the moment that you need to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and show your support for these heartfelt journeys. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because you need to share hope, love, and recovery. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the impact of supporting the channel with your engagement.